Have you ever wondered if one night you suddenly woke up and found yourself in a Viking village? No phone, no soft bed, only the smell of firewood, the taste of honey mead, and the sound of warriors laughing loudly right after one of them punched you in the face. Would you survive or collapse after your very first drink? Tonight, you'll try living like a Viking warrior, eating at a feast that stretches as far as the eye can see, drinking honey mead instead of water, listening to sagas that are both hilarious and terrifying, and maybe ending up in a burning ship drifting toward Valhalla. You will hear stories that may sound fierce, but here they are told slowly, gently, like a lullaby of history. Just enough curiosity to keep you listening, and just enough softness to let you drift into sleep without realizing it. This is History for Sleep, where the past is not loud like in textbooks, but turns into a dream that carries you through the night. If you are curious about what was served at a Viking feast, how sacrifices were made, and why even the end of the world, Ragnarok, could be told like a joke, then stay until the very end. And if you want to keep wandering through other dreams, Egypt with its pyramids, Rome with its Colosseum, or China with its ancient dynasties, remember to subscribe, so each night you'll have a new journey with History for Sleep. But now, lie down, breathe slowly, and get ready. Your Viking journey is about to begin, and perhaps you won't want to miss a single detail. The moment you set foot in the Viking village, the cold slaps your face like a strict mother-in-law, and the smell of smoke mixed with roasted meat clings to your clothes, sticking tighter than cheap perfume after a rush-hour bus ride. You haven't even had time to say hello when out of the crowd comes a giant Viking, so big he looks like a mountain with a beard. His shoulders are as wide as the village gate, his beard long enough to braid into a ship's anchor rope, and his eyes shining as if to check whether you're a guest or tonight's appetizer. He doesn't ask your name, doesn't invite you to sit, and certainly doesn't smile a friendly welcome. No, instead, he shoves a massive horn into your hands, so big you think you've just won a grand prize. Except the prize is a mini gas tank filled with honey mead. And the ritual here is simple. If you drink, you're a friend. If you don't, well, prepare to become the sworn enemy of the entire village. You try to lift the horn, heavy like a gym weight rather than a mug of beer. The hall goes silent, dozens of eyes fixed on you, tense as if this were the Olympic finals. Except the sport is, don't choke on mead in front of a crowd. You take one gulp, foam sticking to your lips, the sharp sweetness of honey flooding your mouth. Instantly, cheers explode. Hands slam the wooden tables like thunder, and they cheer for you as if you just killed a dragon armed with nothing but a spoon. You haven't even swallowed when another warrior shoves a second horn into your hands, laughing loudly. That's when you realize an unshakable truth. In Viking culture, mead is not just a drink. It's language, currency, proof of who you are. A man may forget your name, forget your face, but he will remember exactly how many horns you drank tonight. If the East has tea to calm the soul, the North has mead to lose all calm. Tea brings serenity, but Viking mead brings shouting, endless tales, and laughter louder than a storm. And you, unwillingly, have just been baptized into this universe of drunkenness, with one sip heavier than your own pride. You're pulled into the great hall, where a table stretches so far that if you wanted to pass the salt from one end to the other, the fastest way would be to send it by carrier pigeon. The Viking feast is not about sitting neatly to eat. It's more like a bodybuilding stage, where each warrior eats while showing off his muscles. They sit shoulder to shoulder, like a rugby team, except every single one is holding a chicken leg the size of a baseball bat. On the table lies a meal that would make any heart doctor cry. Roasted meat smoking, fat dripping onto the table like a greasy waterfall. Chickens roasted as big as dogs, pork ribs as long as a spiral staircase, and dried fish so hard you could use them as throwing weapons. You grab a piece of bread and instantly realize it's firm enough to replace bricks in a house. Laughter fills the great hall, so thick you feel like you could scoop it with a spoon. A warrior stands to boast of his exploits. Yesterday he defeated one thief, but in today's tale it's already 10, and by next week it will surely become an entire army of fire-breathing dragons. The crowd still claps, still cheers, because here, truth matters less than imagination. The bigger the lie, the more mead you get. A simple, clear, and very dangerous logic for your liver. Suddenly, a drunken man jumps onto the table, singing a saga with a voice as hoarse as an old wooden door that hasn't been oiled in years. He sings endlessly, as if running a marathon with his vocal cords. Some collapse asleep, using shields as pillows. Others keep eating as if the song were nothing more than background music. You clap along with the crowd, wondering, is this a historic ballad or just a never-ending karaoke session? Children sneak bones to chew, pretending to raise horns like their fathers, while the mothers smile faintly, already prepared to drag their drunk husbands home like sacks of grain. And you, sitting in the middle of all this noise, suddenly understand. In Viking culture, a feast is not measured by food, nor by time, but by how many times laughter drowns out the howling wind outside. You've barely sat down, still dizzy, when yet another warrior shoves a horn of mead into your hands, heavy as if someone had just given you a newborn baby. Except this baby is full of alcohol and threatens to erase your memory. Here, every rule of manners is wrapped in 4 words. Drink first, ask later. They don't care where you come from, what job you do, or who your family is. They only care. How many horns can you handle? You raise the horn, your hands trembling as if you're in a weightlifting contest. The crowd cheers, pounding the tables like a medieval rock band. You take a gulp, and immediately they toast you as a hero who just slew 3 dragons and a sea serpent using nothing but a wooden spoon. But before you can celebrate, another horn is shoved into your hands, and you begin to realize, this is not a feast. This is a marathon for your liver, where drinking too slowly makes you a traitor, and drinking too fast earns you the honor of passing out on the floor for everyone's entertainment. The Vikings believed that mead increased wisdom, that just a few cups could open the doors of insight. And indeed, you feel yourself much wiser. For example, you invent a new philosophy. How to stand up without falling flat on your face. Or another great theory. If Thor is truly strong, could he finish an entire barrel of mead in a single breath? The whole table nods in unison, clapping as if you had just presented a scientific discovery that might change the world. Sometimes the conversation turns into a Viking-style TED Talk. One boasts that he emptied his drinking horn in a single gulp. Another proudly claims to have drunk for 3 days and nights straight. And though it is clearly a lie, the crowd still roars, because the logic is simple. The more you exaggerate, the more you get poured. You sit there, your head beginning to buzz, but in everyone's eyes, you have officially been accepted into the Viking world. No documents, no signatures, just drinking. You wake up after the feast, your head pounding as if an entire band were rehearsing inside your skull. Morning light seeps through the cracks of the wooden door, cold and blindingly white, forcing you to squint. Outside, the shouting has begun again, not for more mead this time, but to prepare for a new day, a day of battle. You struggle to sit up, wondering how much you drank, but no one cares about the answer. In Viking life, how many horns you emptied yesterday matters far less than whether you can stand firm on the battlefield today. You step into the yard, where the smell of forge smoke mixes with the scent of animal hides, sweat, and molten steel. The air is so heavy that even breathing feels like a burden. Men are testing their shields, banging them together to hear the solid sound. It rings out sharp and steady, like the collective heartbeat of the village. Others sharpen swords, each stroke scraping out a hiss, clean and sharp, as though slicing through the last silence of the morning. You watch the blade glint in the pale sunlight and realize it is not only a tool for killing, but also like a flat mirror, reflecting the anxious face of your own. One of your drinking companions from last night slaps you on the shoulder, grinning, axe in hand. He boasts that it is light and balanced, forged from good steel, the edge sharp enough to split a hair. Then he swings it for practice, but instead of cutting air, he smashes straight into a barrel of mead. The drink spills everywhere. Everyone bursts into laughter, and he only shrugs. Well, consider that the axe's first victory. The laughter cuts through the tension, reminding you that even on the brink of war, Vikings always find a reason to laugh. The women are there too, not to fight, but to check straps, stitch armor, and watch with eyes half anxious, half proud. A small boy runs around, trying to lift a shield twice his size, staggering before toppling over. Laughter rises again, but this time it is gentler, warmer. You take your shield. It is heavy, your arm shakes, but slowly you get used to it. The chieftain steps forward, his voice booming like a drum, signaling preparation. Everyone adjusts their helmets, tightens their armor, and in that instant, the noise seems to fade. The entire village breathes in deeply, as though drawing the strength of the earth itself into their chests. You stand among them, shield in hand, back straight. The hangover still throbs in your skull, but now it is drowned out by another rhythm, the quickened beat of your heart, joining the pounding drums outside. You understand that yesterday you were only a guest at the feast, but today you have truly become part of the Viking army. You march with the others out of the village, the cold wind slapping your face, but no one notices. Ahead, a drummer begins to beat. The sound rises like the giant heartbeat of the host, steady, solid, shaking the very ground. You feel every beat pounding into your chest, forcing your heart to move in a new rhythm, the rhythm of battle. Some warriors add to the music, banging swords against shields, the metallic clash shrill and bright, like Odin's great alarm clock. The crowd moves forward, and the drumbeat is not music. It is command. 1 beat, march. 2 beats, raise shields. 3 beats, prepare. You look around and see everyone moving in perfect tempo, like a living orchestra of flesh and steel. And you, who just yesterday stumbled drunkenly, are now stepping in rhythm with them, no different than a single note in a thundering symphony of iron and drums. But even in this solemn moment, there are still clumsy touches of humanity. A huge warrior, too eager, slams his axe into his shield so hard that he punches a hole through it. Laughter erupts, then quickly fades, for the drum beat presses them on. Another, walking behind, gets carried away with the rhythm, banging his sword until he drops it into the mud. Red-faced, he picks it up, while a comrade whispers, "Thor will forgive you if you buy a barrel of mead after the battle." You realize that for the Vikings, battle and feast are not truly separate. The way they march to war is like a parade, with music, with laughter, with mistakes, but all blending into a strange rhythm, at once terrifying, comical, and mesmerizing. The sound of metal striking metal grows louder, at first scattered, then forming a rhythm. Shields against shields, swords against axes, the clangs ringing like the bells of a cathedral made of steel. You breathe deeply, listening, and in that moment the noise becomes a reversed lullaby. Not music to sleep, but music to awaken courage, to awaken excitement, and to awaken even the hidden fears within. You grip your shield tighter, raise your sword high, and think to yourself, yesterday you drank to be accepted. Today you strike steel to prove yourself. The drum keeps beating, steady, neither rushed nor slow, each thump like the eternal heartbeat of warriors. And you understand. As long as this rhythm continues, none of you are allowed to stop. You march onto the battlefield. The ground trembles beneath hundreds of feet, the drum still steady, but now mixed with the thunder of shields clashing, axes ringing, and voices shouting so loud that birds scatter in panic across the sky. The air is thick with the smell of iron, sweat, and the raw scent of crushed grass, a fragrance no one would ever bottle to sell. But to Vikings, it is the scent of glory. The ranks crash into each other, and instantly everything turns into a dance. Shields rise, swords swing, axes slash, helmets clang. From afar, it looks like some bizarre collective performance. Arms rising and falling in rhythm, shields clattering as percussion, shouts thundering as chorus. You think, if someone recorded this scene, future generations might mistake it for a harvest festival. Just a little more violent than usual. You turn, raise your shield, and an enemy's blade strikes against it with a ringing crack. Your arm goes numb, but the drumbeat still pounds, driving you forward. You shove hard, sending him stumbling back. In that moment, you hear laughter nearby. A Viking swinging his axe and shouting as if this were a sport, not life and death. And strangely, you find yourself smiling too, in the midst of the chaos. There are comical stumbles. One warrior, charging too hard, slips and falls face first, saved only by the size of his shield that hides his embarrassment. Another swings his axe so wildly that it flies into a bush, now keeping company with squirrels. But no one lingers to laugh for long, because the music of steel pulls everyone forward. You begin to feel the rhythm inside your own body. Every strike, every step moves in time with the sound around you. You are no longer lost, no longer the outsider forced to hold a horn and a shield, but a small note in a vast symphony of blood and iron. In the unending clangor, you feel both trembling and exhilarated, as if dancing a choreography you never learned, yet your body already knows by heart. And then, in that moment, you understand why the Vikings called battle the dance of steel. Not just for the sound and rhythm, but because within the chaos, they discovered something both terrifying and beautiful. You gasp for breath, your hand still gripping the shield, your chest rising and falling like you've just raced a pack of wolves. The battle slowly draws its curtain. The clang of swords on shields grows sparse, the shouts fade, leaving a strange emptiness in your ears, as if after a long, heavy metal track, the power suddenly went out. The ground underfoot is soupy with mud, mixed with crushed grass and streaks of blood. But all you feel is the weight of your own legs, heavy as stone, with no strength left for more thoughts. Around you, the survivors begin to drop to the ground, panting hard. A huge fellow sits beside you, chuckling, holding up his bleeding arm like he just won a track and field medal. "Look at this," he says. "A beautiful wound. My wife will be stitching for a month." Everyone bursts out laughing, as if they were commenting on a game instead of having just dodged death. You glance at your own arm, see a long scratch oozing blood, and think, at least you have a trophy to show. Another man, face smeared with dirt, rummages in his pouch and yells, "Anyone got mead left?" The question makes the whole group roar, so very Viking. After a fight, the first order of business isn't counting loot, but seeing whether there's a drop of mead left to quench thirst. Someone finds a half-full skin, passes it around, each person taking a swig. It tastes of sand and blood, but everyone nods like they're savoring fine wine. You lean back against your shield. Weariness rises up, but with it comes a strange relief. You are alive. You went into battle, moved in step with the dance of steel, and now you share laughter with your comrades. An old warrior uses his sword like a cane and says slowly, "This is when Odin smiles." Not because someone died, but because we can still laugh. His words bring a brief hush, then laughter again, because in the Viking world, even philosophy must be told as a joke. You touch your wound and feel a sharp sting, but inside that pain is a small pride, as if your body has been carved with a new mark, proof that you are no longer just a drinker in the great hall, but a fighter on the field. The day leans toward evening. Golden light spreads over the battlefield, softening the harshness, almost like a blotchy painting by a drunken artist. You lift your head, breathe deep, and realize, inside this bone-deep fatigue lies a quiet happiness. You sit on the trampled ground, sweat pouring, throat dry as if you'd swallowed a whole desert. You want a scoop of cool water, but what Viking cares about water? Here, thirsty means mead, tired means mead, sad also means mead. The Vikings have a simple rule. Water is for fish, mead is for warriors. So instead of someone handing you a gourd of spring water, a warrior shoves into your hand a heavy leather skin that smells of honey, sloshing with mead left over from last night's feast. You tilt your head back and take a long pull. The bittersweet taste runs down your throat, not really easing your thirst, but at least making your head spin a bit more. The whole group passes it around, drinking as if it's the only source of life. One man drinks and laughs. If Odin wished, he could rain mead instead of water. Then farmers would be happy, warriors would be happy, only the cows would keel over. Laughter bursts out again, loud enough to drown the cawing of crows over the field. Some use their wounds as an excuse to drink more. One points to the rip on his shoulder and shouts, "Blood flows out, so mead must flow in." No one objects, because the argument sounds surprisingly reasonable. Another sits counting bruises on his arm, taking a swig for each mark, as if playing a game of one drink per hit. You look around. No one mentions the dead. No one wails or moans. Instead, they clink horns, tell stories, and drink. Those who fell are named as the mead warms the air, a way to keep them living inside the laughter. There is no church-style moment of silence, only tales exaggerated so wildly that the departed would probably laugh if they could hear. You hold the horn and feel your hand tremble. You're not sure if it's from exhaustion or a strange excitement. Thirsty as you are, you still drink, and in each gulp, you hear the echo of the whole village, of generations of warriors who came before. Here, mead is not to quench thirst, but to remind you that you belong. As the sun sinks, the field glows red. The Viking warriors still sit there, laughing, drinking, letting mead flow like a river in place of water. You lean back, close your eyes, and in the hazy buzz, you feel yourself drifting, not on a frozen sea, but on a golden ocean of honey mead. You sit amid earth stained with blood and mud, surrounded by Vikings who just fought for their lives. Instead of groaning or collapsing, they start to laugh, and that laughter rings out far and wide, as if nothing serious had happened. A big man raises a roughly bandaged arm and shows off a long tear. "See this? Odin signed his name on me. Not everyone gets that." The crowd erupts. Some even clap as if he had performed a circus trick. Another warrior, a cut across his brow, yells, "I should have died, but luckily the fellow slipped and only hit my helmet. The helmet's fine. It's just my face that's a bit worse." He laughs, and everyone laughs with him, because his face wasn't much to look at in the first place. The laughter blows away the smell of blood, the gloom of bodies scattered nearby. A young man, fresh from his first battle, shakes as he shows his shield full of cracks. Someone teases at once, "Nice, now you've got the special edition shield. Looks like a budget-cut plank." The boy blushes, then laughs too, because laughing with a pack of fierce warriors beats trembling alone. Soon they're debating who fell in the silliest way. Someone swears he saw a guy, all fired up, shout, "For Valhalla," and charge, only to trip on a rock and faceplant in the mud, out cold. Another adds, "Looked heroic, though, like he meant to attack the earth." Laughter rolls again, spreading even to those wrapping bandages. They drag you in as well. A warrior points at you and says, "This recruit drinks mead more than he swings a sword. But hey, everyone has to start somewhere." The group roars, and you, instead of feeling ashamed, laugh with them. In that moment, you understand. In Viking life, jokes are medicine for every wound. Dusk thickens, red light covering the scene. Blood is still wet on the ground. Wounds still weep, but the laughter keeps rising, louder than the circling crows. You lean on your shield, spent, but strangely warm. You haven't just survived. You've learned the Viking art. Use laughter to turn blood into memory, fear into tales told at the feast. And you know that tonight, when the mead flows again, today's jokes will be added to, exaggerated, and kept forever in the village's memory. A saga for this generation alone. You've just washed your face in an icy basin when a long horn sounds, announcing something sacred. It's feast time. A Viking might forget where he left his axe, might forget how many enemies he felled, but he will never forget the way to the great hall when the feast begins. You follow the rush, boots thudding on wooden planks, and at once the heat from the great hearth rolls over you. Before you, a long table stretches like it has no end, piled with roasted meat, dried fish, and bread so hard you could swing it as a self-defense weapon. Drinking horns are already filled, foam spilling over and running down the wood, leaving sticky trails no one bothers to wipe. Vikings don't use tablecloths, because to them the table is already a second battlefield. A little filth only proves the feast is a success. You're pulled down between two burly men. One shoves into your hand a rib as big as a paddle, the other jams in a heavy drinking horn. Laughter booms, voices overlap, the wood creaks under the weight of dozens of bodies. You feel like you're sitting inside the belly of a huge beast, whose heartbeat is laughter and the clack of horn against horn. Roast meat passes from hand to hand. No one cares about knives and forks. Everything is torn by hand, eaten with teeth, and if a piece falls on the table, you just pick it up, dust it off, and pop it in your mouth. The man beside you is gnawing a bone, the crack of it unnerving, yet his face is blissful as if he were tasting honey. You try a piece of meat, charred outside but soft and sweet within, smoke on your tongue so rich you forget the sting in your arm. Mead pours without end. As soon as it dips, someone fills it again, as if the barrel could never run dry. Someone stands and shouts, "Tonight we celebrate being alive!" Instantly, the whole hall raises horns. The clatter thunders, foam flies into hair and onto clothes, and no one minds. You lift your horn too, and in that moment, you feel you truly belong here. The hearth fire crackles, lighting the bearded faces of warriors, making their eyes gleam like flames. The air is loud and chaotic, but deep inside it there's a slow rhythm, a strange lullaby. Laughter rising and falling, wooden spoons tapping pots, the soft bubbling of mead in horns. You lean back, feeling the warmth, the buzz, and the noise blending into one thick blanket wrapped around you. You've just finished gnawing the rib when the noise dips a little. At the head of the table, a warrior with beer-red cheeks and eyes shining like oil lamps about to go out jumps up. He bangs his horn on the table, thump, thump, then declares in a drunk slur, "I killed a dragon!" The hall explodes with laughter, but no one stops him. In Viking land, mead has the right to turn any ordinary deed into a grand legend. You listen, sipping mead, watching him gesture. At first the tale makes sense. A far journey, a big beast, a tense fight. But the beast swells as he speaks. From a large bear, it becomes a fire-spitting monster, then a giant dragon with wings that cover the sun. Each sweep of his arm seems to heat the air, as if the whole room is pulled into his imagined furnace. You glance at the man next to you. He nods solemnly like he's in a history lecture. After a while, someone cuts in. "What color was the dragon?" The storyteller frowns, answers at once. "Green, green, no, blue. Actually, it changed color with its mood." The room doubles over, yet still cheers him on, because the more absurd, the better. Another warrior asks, "How big was it?" Without pause, he roars, "As big as this whole hall plus 3 longships." You spray your mead, then join the shouting chorus, because in this drunken moment, everyone wants to believe. When he reaches the final strike, the entire hall holds its breath. He slashes through the air and knocks over his neighbor's plate of dried fish. No one cares. He ends with a shout. "And then the dragon fell, and I drank a horn to celebrate." The whole room rises, lifts horns, and guzzles, as if they too helped slay that imaginary beast. You raise your horn, the mead slides down, and for a heartbeat, you believe the story yourself. You picture vast black wings, a roar that shakes the sky, and a gloriously drunk warrior bringing it down with an axe. Maybe in the Viking world, truth matters far less than the telling. And if a story can make a hall howl with laughter, cheer, and drink 10 more horns, then it has fulfilled its duty to history. You lean back, smiling through the buzz, and think, here, anyone can be a hero, so long as there's enough mead and imagination. You think the feast stops at eating entails? Oh no. After a few horns, Vikings turn the Great Hall into a giant playground where any madcap game is fair, so long as it brings laughter. A warrior stands, raises his shield, and yells, "Whoever can stay standing on the table the longest wins." A few immediately climb up, feet stomping roasted meat and dried fish, mead splashing everywhere. You're dragged along, wobbling up, and must balance as if on a tightrope, except underfoot is a mountain of chicken bones and pork ribs. Cheers roll across the room. Whoever lasts earns more mead, a sweet prize and a trap. You watch a man claim his reward, then instantly topple over, crashing onto the table like a sack of potatoes and dragging a stew pot onto his head. The hall howls with laughter, louder than the crackling hearth. Before you can catch your breath, a new contest begins. Saga singing. The rules are simple. Whoever sings the longest without collapsing wins. One man starts, voice raspy like an old door, dragging out an endless tale. Another jumps in to answer chant, turning the hall into mass karaoke, but with only one theme: fighting, drinking, and fighting again. They shout for you to sing too, and in your drunken state you bellow a few off-rhythm lines. Instead of jeers, the hall erupts in applause, because in Viking land, it's not about singing well, it's about singing loud enough to drown the rest. Then comes axe throwing at a log at the far end. The throwers aim, but bellies full of mead make hands tremble. Axes fly everywhere. Some bite into pillars, some skid right out the door. Your heart leaps to your throat, but the Vikings just cackle, as if every wild miss were a planned comedy bit. You find yourself laughing too, laughing until your stomach hurts, forgetting the sting of your wounds. The room swells with energy. Mead makes every crazy idea sound reasonable. And in that moment you realize these games are the true heartbeat of a Viking feast. Chaotic, loud, a little dangerous, but overflowing with joy. A Viking night isn't only drinking or eating. It's a chain of drunken games where people test each other not by wit or elegance, but by tolerance for mead, the strength of their voice, and the knack for falling down and getting up laughing. You look around, see the firelight reflected in every eye, and understand that in this world, the roaring laugh is the victory song after every battle. You haven't even wiped the foam off your tunic when a hard knocking sounds. Thump, thump, thump. The great hall quiets. An old man with a snow-white beard rises. He leans on his sword like a cane, eyes glittering in the firelight, and speaks in a deep, gravelly voice. Brothers, it is time for the saga. At once, everyone holds their breath, as if for a sacred rite. You sit up straight, eyes wide, while your stomach whispers that a little more meat would help you focus. The old man begins, slow and even. The tale opens with far sea voyages, dragon ships cutting white-capped waves, and blazing deeds of valor. At first you're drawn in, but then the words keep coming and coming and coming. A tiny detail gets a page: how the horse runs, the color of its coat, how many pebbles its hooves press, all of it told. After a while your eyelids grow heavy, as if someone tied stones to them. Now and then he pauses for a sip of mead, then continues. Each time he drinks, the hall cheers as if drinking were part of the ritual itself. You sneak a look around. Some nod intently, others nod, asleep. A few snore loudly, and no one wakes them, because in Viking land, dozing during a saga is also a kind of respect. At least you're sleeping with the story. The tale goes on, from father to son, from one voyage to the next. You wonder if there will be an ending, or if this is a circle without end, to be told until Ragnarok, and still not done. Someone whispers in your ear, "This is only the prologue." You almost choke on your mead, then chuckle, because you know that tonight you'll be lulled to sleep by this very saga. Longer than the drunkenness, tougher than a strip of Viking jerky. Little by little, the voice evens out like a faraway drum. You catch strange names and grand journeys, but your mind drifts, like a Viking ship sliding through fog. The laughter and cheers from before now blend with the telling, becoming a warm background hum. You close your eyes and let yourself sink into the endless flow of the saga. Funny and soothing, like a Viking lullaby sung with history, with mead, and with imagination that never runs out. You wake to snores louder than last night's war drums. Morning light slides through the gaps in the wood, harsh and rude, stabbing your eyes like a god in charge of punishing drunks. Your head feels as if someone stuffed a boulder inside. Your mouth is dry as if you'd chewed sea sand. You move your arm and find it resting on a shield, and on the other side lies a chicken leg gnawed halfway since last night. You sit up, or try to, and roll to one side from the dizziness. The scene is hard to describe. Viking warriors sprawled everywhere, some using shields as pillows, some hugging barrels like stuffed toys, some half on the table and half on the floor, like unfinished statues. On the tables, mead is spilled, roasted meat is chewed ragged, and the bread has hardened into bricks. A man crawls up, eyes bloodshot, beard crusted with dried foam. He groans, "My head hurts worse than getting smacked by Thor's hammer." The few still awake chuckle weakly. A rough, hoarse sound, more like complaining than joy. Another man bolts outside without a word, leaving behind noises best not described. Everyone just shrugs. That too is part of the after-feast rites. You try to recall last night. There's a hazy shard about a giant green dragon that changed colors, a saga so long it could measure the seasons, and you being dragged into a table-balancing game. Looking down, you see your boots soaked with stew and grease, proof that memory wasn't a dream. While you cradle your head, an old woman enters with a staff, shaking her head with a sigh. She's the one who cleans after every feast, her face set in long-practiced resignation. Another night of Valhalla spilling into the world, she mutters, then starts gathering bones and wiping mead while the warriors either sleep on or beg for water. You know no one will truly stop drinking because of this morning's price. Tomorrow night, when the fire burns and cups are filled, they will sing again, tell again, and play mad games again. And you, skull pounding like a hammer, also know you'll lift the horn again, clink again, and melt into laughter that drowns the pain. You lie back down and listen. Snores, groans, and the old woman's grumbling, all blending into a Viking after-party song. Not loud, not fierce, but heavy and slow, like wind over ice, unpleasant yet strangely familiar. You stretch out on the wooden floor, your head aching as if a troll sits inside, each heartbeat a hammer blow. Around you, Vikings crawl upright, faces haggard, hair wild, yet no one looks regretful. Instead, they start piecing together broken bits of memory from the night, and from those fragments, laughter flares again, drowning the hangover. One brags he sang the saga until he dropped, and another cuts in. You only dropped after falling off the table and smashing the stew pot. The hall roars. Even he laughs, holding his swollen head like it's a medal of honor. A young warrior admits he joined the table balancing contest but managed only 3 seconds. Someone yells, 3 seconds is still glory! 3 seconds of fame! Laughter thunders, louder than the groans. They rope you in too. A man winks and says, yesterday you shouted, I'll slay the dragon, and fell straight onto a chair. Everyone howls, and you, blushing, can't help laughing along. Here, shame doesn't last. Every drunk mistake gets turned into a joke, and that laughter becomes a new kind of mead, not poured from a horn, but from shared memory. Someone still queasy clutches his belly and giggles as they recall him swinging an axe like a fan. The old woman passes with a rag and scolds, you drink as if to drown the whole village. But she too smiles when she sees a burly warrior still dozing, mouth open, clutching his shield like a body pillow. You realize that in Viking life, laughter matters as much as mead. It softens the headache, eases the worry about the next battle, and heals the invisible wounds deeper than any cut. Laughter ties people together after violence, blood, and drink, into a community even the gods would struggle to pull apart. You chuckle softly. The buzzing in your head lightens. Not because the mead fades, but because the laughter works like another medicine. Steady, warm, soaking into tired muscles. You understand that no matter how brutal the battles, no matter how rivers of mead flow, what keeps Vikings alive is the power to laugh louder than a storm. And so, in the lingering haze, you find yourself smiling. A small smile, then a sound, joining the hall's shared laughter. It booms, rattles the rafters, smothers the reek of drink and the aches of pain, leaving only warmth spreading like the fire in the hearth. You're woken not by mead being poured, but by a call echoing from the yard. Gather to the temple! Your head is still heavy from the feast, but your feet must follow the crowd. Today, the whole village prepares for a sacrifice. Not a loud party, not a bloody battle, but a rite both sacred and a little like a harvest fair. You see men hauling goats and sheep, and one fellow dragging a pig as big as a banquet table. They bleat and squeal in protest at their fate. Children trot along, pointing and giggling, treating the procession like a show. An old woman carries a basket of herbs. Their raw scent mixes with fur and smoke into a blend no market could sell. Near the wooden temple, people raise poles draped in red cloth and tuck green branches everywhere. On the altar sit wooden bowls of grain and bread, and a few jugs of mead, because Viking gods don't skip mead on the menu. The priest, beard down to his chest, steps out in a fur cloak, solemn and stern. When he lifts his hand for silence, the children still titter, and he scowls. You fight a laugh. He looks like a teacher trying to tame a noisy class. They lay out the sacrificial knives, bright in the sun. Each blade is honed and clean enough to mirror your anxious face. Meanwhile, the warriors casually discuss whether there'll be roast goat afterward, clearly more excited about that than about pleasing the gods. One man whispers, "If Thor wants, he'll take the soul. The meat is ours." The priest frowns at the cackling, but no one stops. You look around and feel how the mood is both solemn and everyday. This is the Viking world. The gods are honored, yet laughter and mead slip into every ritual. You stand among the crowd, breathe deep the sense of hay, beasts, and wood smoke, and feel your heart take on another rhythm. Not the hall's roar, not the field's fury, but a quiet beat before the ceremony begins. In that moment you realize, in Viking life, preparing a sacrifice is much like preparing a great feast. There is food, there is mead, there are rites, and of course, there will be a story to retell tonight in the Great Hall. You stand packed into the crowd before the wooden temple, where incense smoke begins to curl up, thin in the cold wind. The priest steps out, his fur cloak sweeping the ground, silver beard fluttering. He raises both hands, and the crowd slowly quiets until only the protesting bleats of a few goats remain. His voice is deep. "We offer this to the gods, for the harvest, for the sea, for victory." The sound is steady and firm, like hammers driving stakes into timber. You feel the air grow heavier. Hard-bitten warriors bow their heads and close their eyes. A few mothers hold their children close, whispering for them to keep quiet. But Viking children are still children. One blows air into another's ear, both giggling, nearly making the old men in front laugh too. The priest whips around with a stern glare, and the whole bunch instantly pretends to be angelic, as if nothing happened. You try to keep a solemn face, but a thought flashes. It's hard to focus on prayer when a sheep beside you keeps bleating like it's arguing back. Each time the priest calls Odin's name, the sheep answers, sounding like a formal reply. Someone near you whispers, "Maybe the gods have accepted already." You bite your lip to hold back a laugh, eyes lowered so you won't be caught. The priest lifts the sacrificial knife. Light flashes along its edge as he begins a long invocation. His voice hums, even and repeating, becoming like a lullaby. Your head starts to dip, last night's mead mixing with the solemn cadence, turning your eyelids to stone. But you force them open. If you doze off during a sacrifice, the village will mock you all winter. In the hush, other sounds are clear. The crack of fire, the wind whistling through the boards, your heartbeat slowing. The mood of ritual spreads, drawing even the loudest into silence. Though smiles hide in a few beards, you sense real reverence. No one here scorns the gods. They simply blend the sacred with the everyday in their own way. When the final words are spoken, the whole crowd bows and grows completely still. The priest lowers his hands, the bright knife poised. You breathe in deep, knowing the crucial moment is near. The silence is so thick you can hear your own breath. A fragile pause where all joking stops, and the entire village waits for the gods to listen. You stand with the crowd, eyes fixed on the open space where the first goat is led out. Its white coat shivers with each step, eyes wide, bleeding echoes like a complaint or a thin protest song. Two warriors hold the rope tight and bring it to the altar. The priest raises his hand. The crowd falls silent again. No laughter, no whispers, only sighs, and the scent of incense mixing with the singe of goat hair from the nearby torch. You see the ritual blade glinting. The priest lifts it high, chanting for the gods to accept the gift, to grant good harvests and calm seas. The chant is long and slow, steady as a far drum. Then, in one quick motion, He brings the knife down. It happens so fast you catch only a soft phut, and bright blood spills into the wooden bowl waiting below. A few people shut their eyes. Others nod with calm approval, as if watching a familiar rite no different than seeing the sun rise. The priest gathers the blood, dips a branch, and sprinkles it over the crowd. Tiny red drops speckle your face, cold and sticky. The person beside you chuckles. Odin just signed his name on you. You wince, then nod, because in their eyes this is not dirt. It is a blessing. When the goat collapses, it's dragged away, and the next sheep is brought in. It struggles so hard a warrior nearly falls. Children in the back burst into laughter, scolded sternly by their mothers, but the giggles still sneak through, adding a small, earthly note to the solemn scene. An old man shakes his head and mutters, "Freyr will smile. The goats certainly won't." A pig as big as a banquet table is led forward, squealing so loudly the whole yard seems to shake. As it's held down, a warrior murmurs, "If the gods don't hear the prayers, they'll at least hear this pig." You press your lips tight to keep from laughing. In a solemn moment, one laugh could turn you into the joke. Blood flows again, caught again, sprinkled again on altar and people. The raw smell rises, mixing with torch smoke, making you dizzy. Yet instead of disgust, you feel yourself drawn in, because this rite is not only killing, but a slow, deep, repeating music that pulls the village into one shared breath. You understand that for Vikings, sacrifice isn't mindless cruelty. It is how they speak with the gods, with blood, with smoke, with the animals woven into daily life. And in that moment, as the ground reddens, you feel you too have added a small line to that conversation, even if only by standing there, skin chilled by a few bright drops. You're still wiping the flecks from your face when the next act begins. This time a few chickens are brought out, wings tied loosely. The priest lifts his knife and clears his throat, grave and formal. But chickens are chickens. They care nothing for Odin or holy rites. One slips free, thrashes into the crowd. People jump. A few warriors step back and raise shields as if facing a feathered dragon. You see an old woman take a flapping wing to the face. She shrieks and grabs, but the bird slides away and dashes straight for the altar. The priest hesitates, knife raised, unsure whether to strike or wait for it to hold still. The crowd tries to stifle laughter, shoulders shaking, until giggles burst out. The solemn air pops like mead foam. Not done yet. A goat is led up and decides not to cooperate. It plants all 4 feet, bleeding non-stop, digging in like a true warrior. 2 men strain to pull, faces flushed, veins roped, but the goat stays stubborn as stone. A child cries, "It's praying to Thor to save it." The crowd doubles over while the priest scowls, looking for all the world like a teacher defeated by a wild classroom. At last, they haul the goat to the altar, and it rams a warrior square in the belly, knocking him flat and splashing a bowl of blood onto the priest's shoes. Mouths drop open, then laughter erupts even louder. A man wipes tears and says, "Maybe Odin is laughing up there too." The priest's silver beard trembles as he fights to keep his dignity. He resumes the chant, voice low but edged with annoyance. You look around and see warriors struggling not to laugh while nodding with fake piety. But it's hard to stay solemn when that chicken is still sprinting in circles with children chasing it like a game. You draw a breath, smoke and blood and shrill cries all mixed. A Viking sacrifice, which you thought was pure gravity, turns into a small riot of a play. And you understand, for Vikings, the gods must be used to this, accepting blood while hearing laughter, because humans cannot peel life away from noise, not even in the most sacred rites. You wipe the blood fleck from your cheek, let out a small laugh, then bow your head in pretend solemnity, joining the village's strange rhythm, a blend of reverence and humor, of gleaming ritual knives and chickens darting wild across the yard. When the last chicken is caught, when the blood is sprinkled and the prayers are done, the whole village seems to exhale. The priest sheathes the knife, face stern, though you swear there's a tiny smile in his eye. Perhaps even the gods can't blame the chaos that just happened. And then, by instinct, the crowd starts to buzz. A finished sacrifice means one thing: a celebratory feast. Goat, sheep, and pig from the offering are carried to the great hearth. The sizzle of meat spreads fast, merging with smoke and herbs, making your stomach howl. People gather round, as eager as before a battle. A warrior shouts, "If Odin takes the soul, the meat is ours." The cheer that answers shakes the wooden roof. Someone shoves a hot chunk of meat into your hand, fat dripping. No one waits for knives or forks. Hands tear, teeth bite, jaws work. The crunch of chewing, the crack of bones, the rumble of laughter, all blend into a signature Viking song. You take a bite. Rich sweetness spreads, and for a moment you forget that minutes ago this beast was squealing against fate. Mead flows again. Skins pour, horns pass, barrels roll. No cup stays empty. The children get theirs watered down, but they still clink horns proudly, as if already little warriors. Old women sit aside with hard bread, shaking their heads at the staggering men, though their eyes gleam with quiet joy. In the noise you hear boasting, "The goat fought hard, but I was stronger." Another cuts in, "No, I held it fast." The argument swells and ends with clinking horns instead of clashing blades. You chuckle, knowing that in the Viking way, any quarrel can be settled with mead, at least until the mead runs out. Night falls, the fire dances, and songs rise. The saga begins again, this time to celebrate, not to lull. The storyteller may adorn it, turning the runaway chicken into a playful sign from the gods, the stubborn goat into a warrior falling for a noble cause. Everyone roars with laughter, because they know truth matters less than the joy a tale brings. You sit there with meat in hand, horn by your side, eyes on the flames. Your body is weary but warm. You realize that for Vikings, every rite ends in a feast. Blood will wash away, but laughter and mead will echo on, binding the village together, in battle, in ritual, and in every endless banquet. You lean against your shield, belly full of meat, horn half empty in your hand. The hall fire flickers over faces flushed with drink, eyes glowing like embers. Then, as if on cue, a man stands. He knocks his horn on the table, raises his hand, and sings. His voice is hoarse like wind through a mountain crack, but full of confidence. The words are of Odin, of victory, of the fallen. The hall grows quiet, the song threading with the hearth's soft crackle. But silence never lasts long among Vikings. Soon another joins, singing over him, offbeat, off words, and no one cares. The hall bursts into a choir of drunks. One sings the saga solemnly. Another turns the lines to jokes, tossing in made-up bits about slaying a dragon with a wooden spoon, or Thor dropping his hammer from too much mead. Laughter stitches itself into the song, making a music both sacred and earthy. They drag you in too. Your throat is dry, your head still hazy, but you sing along. No rhythm, no note. Strangely, the next table erupts in applause, as if you'd delivered a great epic. You laugh, realizing that here, singing isn't to sound good. It's to make the great hall ring together. The flames climb higher, and the voices swell. Even old warriors with silver beards lift their voices, shaky but strong. Children clap in a corner, eyes wide with awe. In the jumble of song, you hear many things at once: pride, pain, playfulness, and the blur of drink. Each voice is a shard fitting into a shared picture. One only Vikings could paint with mead, blood, and fire. After a while, the singing slows. People lean on each other, voices thin, but the fire keeps the beat for the room. You close your eyes and let the song match your heartbeat, steady as waves on shore. You don't catch every word, but you grasp the feeling. A song against cold, against darkness, against the loneliness of a people living in the storm. You sigh, warmth from the mead spreading, the fire-lit song settling over the room like an invisible blanket. And you know, tonight, like every night, Viking voices will echo on, until the fire dies and the last singer slips into sleep. You think the feast is winding down, the song rocking the hall into a calmer rhythm. But no. In Viking land, when mead has flowed too freely, quiet is only the pause before another wave, settling disputes with fists. It begins small. Two warriors beside you argue about who felled more foes in the morning battle. One swears he cut down 5, the other insists on 8. No one has proof. When everyone charges together, who counts? You think, if they keep drinking, both will remember wrong anyway. But here, words can't settle it. Then, thump. A punch sails across the table and knocks a wooden bowl to the floor. The hall explodes, cheering as if a new game has started. To Vikings, brawls at a feast aren't tragedy. They're a regular part of the entertainment. Your chair jolts as the two tumble to the floor, trading punches and laughter, shouting Odin's name between curses. Others jump in to cheer. Some even bet with roast meat or hard bread. I wager a drumstick on Redbeard. Shouts, shaking tables, and spilling mead pile into a chaos no less wild than the day's battle. Strangely, no one draws a sword or axe. It's fists, shoulders, even knees. If a man goes down, the hall roars, hauls him up, shoves a horn into his hand, and back at it. You watch and suddenly understand. For Vikings, fighting here isn't for hate. It's to bleed off the mead, like settling arguments with chess. Except the board is the wooden floor, and the pieces are chipped teeth flying. At one point, the brawlers roll right into your legs, flinging half your horn across the room. You're ready to snap, but another warrior immediately presses a full horn into your hand and grins. Now you've got a stake in the fun. And you, defeated, laugh too, lifting the horn like you've just won a prize. The shouts stretch on, but no one stays down for long. At last, the two rivals sit up, faces swollen, a tooth missing, then throw arms around each other, laughing and clinking horns hard enough to splash. The hall erupts in applause, treating it like a performance. You sigh, shake your head, but laugh too, because in the Viking world, even punches are just another way of saying, we are brothers. You lean back, head still buzzing, but warmth in your chest. In this chaos, you see that for Vikings, violence and fellowship don't clash. They walk together. A fist may bloody a nose, but it can also seal a friendship, so long as there's mead after to wash it down. You're still dabbing at a bleeding nose when noise rises outside. The Vikings have a special way to settle disputes, the duel of honor. No talk, no pleas, no complaints written down. If two men disagree, over land, livestock, or who stole the warm seat by the hearth, the answer is simple. Step outside, strip to shirts, and let fists, wooden swords, or blunt axes decide. Today, two warriors as tall as trees stand in the yard, the whole village ringed round them, roaring with the thrill of what feels like history's first football match. An elder acts as referee, staff in hand, and calls, "Honor is judged by hand, not by word." It sounds like a morning drill chant, but everyone nods solemnly. You squeeze into the crowd, feeling both tension and excitement. The men roll their shoulders, spit into the dirt, then charge like bulls. The whump of impact makes children jump. The crowd howls. An old woman yells, "Hit harder so Odin can hear." You chuckle. Odin likely has other business, but perhaps he enjoys a show. A Viking duel doesn't always end in death. More often they punch, grapple, throw, and whoever lies flat first loses. But with drink in them, nothing stays tidy. A missed punch turns into a headbutt, then into rolling in the mud. The spectators love it more. The messier, the better. You think, this is a rough version of reality TV, with the whole village as the live audience and contestants winning nothing but bruises. After a flurry, both men pant. One stumbles down, face caked in mud, but springs up laughing, hugging his foe. Cheers shake the air as if a hero's moment has been seen. The elder bangs his staff and declares, "Honor is clear, quarrel is ended." Just like that, tension melts like mead foam. You marvel, so simple. No debate, no defense. A duel, a few bruises, and done. In Viking land, honor isn't in words. It's in how you take a blow, stand again, and still laugh. Looking around, you see the whole village glowing with joy. Children wrestle in imitation. Old men comment like sports announcers. Women shake their heads, but eyes gleam bright. You smile, understanding. A duel of honor is the glue of Viking life. Violent, yes, but binding. You think the Vikings would rest after fistfights and duels? Oh no. For them, violence isn't only to settle quarrels. It's also a communal game. Soon a tall post is planted in the village yard, a ring of ash drawn around it. Someone shouts, "Axe throwing!" and the crowd erupts. Axes pass from hand to hand, blades flashing in the sun. The thrower steps back, swings, the axe spins, and thud, buries in the post. The crowd claps like fireworks. Not every throw lands. Some axes veer close to spectators. You duck, heart pounding, while the villagers laugh as if it were slapstick. In Viking eyes, almost killed still counts as fun. After axes comes shield bashing. Players line up in 2 rows facing each other, each gripping a big shield. At the elder's shout, they charge. Bam! Shield on shield. Thunderous. You're shoved into a row, barely ready before slam. A shield smashes your chest, knocking you back 3 steps. Laughter roars. The man beside you claps your back. Good! Only a little weaker than my grandmother. You grin weakly, clutching your ribs, but step back in. Here, no one can stand aside. The rhythm of shields colliding builds into a pounding beat, like war drums. The villagers sing along with the crashes, turning the clash into community music. Children clap, women cheer, men laugh like boys with new toys. You think, if there were Viking Olympics, they'd have only 2 sports, axe throwing and shield bashing. Sometimes the game goes too far. A shield splits, wood shards smack a bystander on the head, sending him sprawling. But instead of stopping, they laugh, press a horn into his hand, and call it healing. You shiver, but laugh too. Here, pain and joy are 2 sides of the same coin. The games last until everyone's arms ache, the post bristling with axes like a hedgehog, shields dented like old pots. You sink down, chest heaving, heart still racing. Around you, people laugh, slap backs, and retell wild throws and shield crashes. And you realize, for Vikings, violent games aren't only about proving strength. They're about binding the village together. The pain is real, but mead will soothe it, and laughter will stitch over every bruise. You thought brawls, duels, and axe throws were just occasional diversions. But living in a Viking village, you see, violence is daily habit, as natural as breakfast or brushing teeth, if Vikings ever did brush, which is doubtful. You pass the village market and see 2 men quarrel over dried meat. No thought of sharing. The solution? 1 punch, 1 headbutt, and done. The winner carries the meat, the loser carries a swollen nose, both laughing. Onlookers nod. Good. Honor preserved. By the river, you see two boys argue over who rows better. The result? They tumble, wrestling on the sand, while the boat drifts away. Adults pass by, shrug. Good. Training early. And walk on, as if it's more normal than ducks quacking. Even at meals, a dropped piece of meat can spark it. A slammed shield, a few shouts, a scuffle. But oddly, after the nosebleeds, they clink horns, laughing hard. In Viking land, no fight leaves long grudges. It's just another beat in their daily rhythm. Fight, laugh, drink, sleep. You realize the Vikings treat violence as a form of communication. Words of thanks are rare, but backslaps hard enough to crack ribs are common. Instead of sorry, they throw a light punch to the ribs. Reconciliation, Viking style. You think of your own world, where people shake hands. Here, the Viking handshake might cost you 2 teeth. Little by little, you get used to it. A shoulder check on the street no longer startles you. A smack on the back like a hammer blow makes you feel welcomed. You laugh at yourself. You're absorbing the habit, as if it were a kind of Nordic air. And then you understand. For Vikings, violence isn't an exception. It's background music. Not always bloody, but always present, woven into daily life. The habit both frightens you and makes you laugh, because where else would a punch serve as good morning? You sit by the fire and think, in this land, violence isn't a choice, but a rhythm of breath. And maybe that rhythm is what kept them alive, united and happily drunk more than anyone else. A horn call rings from the edge of the village, heralding not battle, not sacrifice, but a grand event, a Viking wedding. You step into the open yard where tents are raised, torches blaze, and long tables stretch out like for a victory feast. In Viking eyes, a wedding is not just two people bound together, but the perfect excuse for the whole village to drink until they drop. The bride is led out in a long blue gown, finely embroidered, a shining silver necklace around her neck. She looks gentle, yet her eyes hold steel, as if thinking, I hope my husband can row a ship, or I'll divorce him by winter. The groom stands tall, beard oiled with sheep fat, fur cloak making him look both heroic and oddly like a well-groomed bear. The ceremony begins with the gift of a sword. The bride hands over her father's blade, a reminder to protect family honor, but don't ruin the edge. Then comes the wedding rings. Not glittering gold like in romance tales, but iron or silver, solid and heavy, as if to say, love isn't for show, it's for carrying. And then, the part everyone waits for, the mead. Huge barrels are rolled out, froth spilling like waves. Bride and groom clash horns first, drink deep, and the hall roars like thunder. After that, no one cares about them anymore. The whole village surges toward the tables, clinking horns, gulping, mead pouring like waterfalls. You're forced into one cup, then another for the couple's happiness, then a third for Frey's blessing, and by the fourth you think you're marrying the entire village. A Viking wedding is nothing less than a festival version of a drinking feast. Games, singing, sagas of battle. Someone, already drunk, leaps up and shouts, "Love is great, but mead is greater!" The crowd explodes with laughter, horns raised, and you laugh too, because no one here could deny it. You look around, children dash about, elders nod off, youths compete in drinking, singing, axe dancing. Amid it all, bride and groom still sit side by side, smiling, raising horns again. In the laughter, in the mead, you realize Viking love isn't roses or candlelight, but a pledge to drink together for life. You've reached your fifth horn when the laughter in the hall shakes the beams, faces red as coals. The couple sit in honor before 2 barrels of mead, their dowry of drink. In Viking thought, love must match drinking power, and promises mean most after 10 horns. The groom rises, swaying but eyes shining, and cries, "I swear to row through storms, to behead my enemies, to bring back gold, and never let her horn go empty." The hall erupts. An old woman claps. "That's the vow worth marrying for." You laugh until you choke, thinking, if he forgets the mead, Odin may handle the divorce. The bride matches him. She lifts her horn, voice sweet but slurred. "I swear to clean the table after you vomit, to sew your tunic when your swing misses, and not to laugh too loud when you fall out of the boat." The hall roars, fists pound the tables. A warrior yells, "That's true love!" Guests join in, each after a gulp of mead. One promises to help keep their house, unless another feast is elsewhere. Another swears to treat their children as his own, provided the child brings mead on time. Vows both sincere and absurd, turning the wedding into a contest of who can boast best. You're dragged in too. A horn pressed to your hand, you declare, "I promise to tell this wedding story until no one remembers who I am." Shockingly, the hall erupts in applause, hailing you as a sage, while you're just trying not to vomit. The night stretches, mead flows, vows pile up. You realize, in Viking land, love isn't measured by gold rings or whispers under the moon, but by how many times horns clash and how long you endure drink. If 2 can collapse drunk together, then rise next morning still laughing. That's love proven. You lean back, eyes blurring in the firelight, hearing laughter, songs, and vows both tender and ridiculous, and you smile. Tonight the Vikings taught you love is like mead. The more it's shared, the stronger it tastes. You think Viking love is only mead and sweet promises? Oh no. In a village where everyone is bear strong and drinks like fish, love must also endure jealousy. And Viking jealousy isn't the quiet frown of a novel. It's loud, dramatic, and often ends with horns flying. It begins when a warrior, 10 horns deep, recites a poem for his wife. Romantic, except he says the wrong name. You see her face turn red, not from drink, but from fury. "What did you just call me?" she hisses, the hall holding its breath. The husband stammers, tries to fix it. Too late. Result: a punch across the table, spilling a whole barrel, as the crowd shouts in shock and delight. At another table, a young bride flares when her husband stares too long at the serving girl pouring mead. She yells, "Do you want to sleep in the goat pen tonight?" He blanches, then drains his horn in one desperate gulp, as if mead might serve as shield. The crowd howls, someone shouting, "Bring him another horn! He'll need it!" You realize Viking jealousy is never quiet. It's a public performance, with the whole village as audience. No one whispers reproach. They shout loud enough for Odin to hear. And strangely, no one finds it tense. They treat it like comedy in a festival. Of course, sometimes it goes too far. 2 men chase the same girl's gaze, mead fueling the fire. They crash into each other, wrestling across the feast table, chicken bones and dried fish flying. But instead of stopping them, the crowd cheers, while the girl sits sipping mead, eyes sparkling, clearly pleased to be the cause of the mock battle. You watch and laugh, realizing Viking jealousy isn't meant to break love, but to make it louder. After a few punches and empty horns, they'll clink cups again, laugh, and sing sagas praising the fight itself. You lean back, take another gulp, and think. Here, love and jealousy are measured by how loud you shout and how deep you drink. And somehow, in all the noise, Viking love proves strong in its own way. Because after every quarrel, They still sit down, clash horns, and laugh under firelight. You rest against a wooden pillar in the hall, looking around. Days have passed since the wedding, yet the mead flows, and Viking love keeps fermenting. In this world, marriage doesn't just begin with a loud wedding. It's sustained by an invisible cord, sweet and heady. Honey mead. You hear an old woman say, "For marriage to last, you must drink mead together for a month after the wedding." She calls it the honeymoon, not because of moonlight or sweet honey, but because the couple must drink honey mead every day. You laugh. So the honeymoon today is only a soft echo of the Viking hangover. In the kitchen, the new bride pours mead for her husband, firm hand, eyes commanding, "Drink." He clinks horns, gulps deep, then grins with foam in his beard. You see it plain. In Viking life, sharing mead matters as much as sharing a bed. A couple may quarrel fiercely, but if they sit down and share a barrel, the quarrel melts into froth. Someone in the village whispers, "Without mead, a marriage wouldn't last past the first winter." You think, may be true. When snowstorms close in, when nights stretch endless, it's the warm horn of mead that keeps people enduring, even loving each other more. You spot an old couple, silver-haired by the fire. He recites an old saga, she gnaws hard bread, and both raise small horns together. They need no grand promises, just a sip, a glance, a laugh. In their eyes, you see the Viking secret. Marriage isn't held by words, but by the habit of clinking horns without end. You sip again, warmth spreading in your chest. You understand. In the Viking world, marriage and mead are two faces of one coin. Without mead, love is brittle. With mead, love softens, flows, and though loud, jealous, even violent, it stays bound by intoxication. You smile, almost seeing Odin and Frey nodding, raising cups beside you. And in the crackle of fire, you hear a Viking truth. A family that drinks together will reach Valhalla together. You sit close by the hearth, while outside the wind howls through wooden gaps, carrying sea salt and snow. A Viking winter night is endless, long as a saga with no end. And in such nights, wrapped in furs, there is only one way to pass time. Tell myths. The elders begin. One lifts his rough voice, steady and slow, telling of Odin, the wise god with one eye, who gave the other for a sip of knowledge. A child pipes up. "So does Odin wear a pirate patch?" The hall bursts laughing. The old man feigns sternness. "No, Odin doesn't need a patch. With one eye he sees enough to make you tremble." The children huddle, then giggle again. The tale moves to Thor, god of thunder, hammer Mjolnir in hand. The storyteller paints so vividly you almost see lightning in the hall, though it's only firelight flickering. A warrior whispers behind you, "Thor must be drunk like us to throw his hammer so wildly." Laughter ripples, yet heads nod. For in Viking minds, gods are as close as drinking brothers. Then comes Loki, the sly one, the eternal trickster. The story says he can take any shape, a horse, a fly, even a fish. A young man shouts, "If Loki were here, he'd turn into a cup of mead so we could drink him." The crowd laughs again, but no one denies Loki could. You sip your horn, bittersweet running down your throat, and realize Viking myth isn't just about gods. It's how people laugh, fear, and survive long nights. It's philosophy, entertainment, and lullaby all at once. The rising and falling voice, the crackle of fire, the moaning wind, all weaving into a rhythm, drawing you like a dream. In that moment you see, Viking myth isn't only to teach lessons, but to make humans feel less small against endless dark. And here, among mead, fire, and stories, you too become part of that endless tale. You sit close to the flames, heat stinging your face, while outside the wind howls long. The storyteller lifts his tone, now about Odin, the high god who craved knowledge so deeply he dared to sacrifice his own eye. Long ago, Odin hungered to know all, the universe, fate, the end of all things. He came to Mimir's well, keeper of secrets. But Mimir was no fool. He demanded, "To drink this water you must pay." And the price was not gold, but an eye. You frown, thinking, worst deal in history, an eye for a sip? But to Odin, it was a bargain. He plucked out his eye, dropped it into the well, and drank. From then on, Odin had but one eye, yet his wisdom saw past and future alike. The crowd listens, nodding. A warrior whispers in your ear, "If it were me, I'd trade just a tooth. Cheaper deal." Another chimes in, "No, I'd give my nose. Keep both eyes. They're for watching the mead." The group chuckles, yet their faces stay solemn, for this is still the tale of the high god. The storyteller's voice grows deep. From that day, Odin saw the world with one eye, but saw more than anyone. The eye he kept could pierce into mankind. With a single glance, he could read every thought. You shiver, imagining a one-eyed god catching you, sneaking an extra horn of mead. A child pipes up, "So where's the other eye now?" The answer comes, "Still in Mimir's well, glowing like a jewel at the bottom." The children gasp, eyes wide, picturing a giant eye shining underwater like a lantern. You think, if a Viking ever digs it up, they'd probably turn it into jewelry. You sip again, tasting the sweet bitter like the story itself, trading an eye for wisdom, mad, yet magnificent. You realize, in the Viking world, knowledge doesn't come from books, but from blood, pain, and sacrifice. And perhaps that madness is what made Odin the highest god. The voice slows, blending with the crackle of fire. You rest your head, the image of a glowing eye beneath the well drifting in your mind, eerie yet comforting. And you understand, sometimes to see clearly, one must dare to close an eye. You've barely dozed off when cheers erupt. Now it's Thor's turn, the loudest of gods. If Odin is silent wisdom, Thor is thunder's roar, hammer striking steel. The storyteller chuckles, lifts a horn, and begins. Thor wields Mjolnir, the mightiest weapon of all gods. One throw can shatter mountains. Yet its strangest gift, the hammer always returns, like a loyal dog fetching a stick. You grin. The myth sounds grand, but the image of Thor playing throw and catch with his hammer all day is amusing. The tale flows. Each strike of Mjolnir shakes the sky with thunder. Children shiver, whispering, "So every storm is Thor throwing a tantrum." An old woman interrupts. "No, it's just him dropping his hammer after too much mead." The hall erupts in laughter, half joke, half belief. Once, giants stole Mjolnir. Thor's fury shook Asgard. To reclaim it, he disguised himself as a bride, dressed in white, veil hiding his beard. You imagine the red-bearded thunderer in wedding gown, hammer tucked beneath. The thought nearly makes you spill your mead. The storyteller insists. When the hammer was revealed, Thor struck down the giants in one sweep. But the crowd howls, unable to unsee Thor as a giant bride. Thor is known for his temper. Any insult, he lifts his hammer. Yet folktales add, often his rage came from being mocked for drinking too little mead. An old warrior shakes his head. If Thor lived in our village, his hammer would fall daily. The hall roars, horns clashing. You listen, half afraid, half amused. Thor feels close, loud, hot-tempered, clumsy at times. Like the Vikings here, rowdy, hard-drinking, quick to anger, yet always ready to shield their kin. You sip, hearing the tale mingle with the wind outside. For a moment, you too are part of it, small under thunder, yet sheltered in the arms of endless stories. You sit near the fire as the voice lowers, like a secret about to unfold. There is Odin the wise, Thor the mighty, but also Loki. Not god of strength, not god of wisdom, but god of mischief. Loki, the trickster, could shapeshift into anything. A horse, a fish, even an old crone. You think, if Loki lived today, he'd turn into an empty mead horn to avoid cleaning. The story continues. Many times Loki saved Asgard with his tricks, yet many times he doomed it. A warrior nearby mutters, like that drunk friend, always starts fun, always ruins the feast. He tricked giants, helped Thor win back his hammer, yet also nearly brought the world to ruin. Children giggle and squirm. Is he hero, villain, or both? That is what makes him dangerous. The voice drops. Few know Loki fathered the darkest creatures. Then come their names. Fenrir, the wolf destined to devour the sun. Jormungandr, the world serpent coiling around earth. Hel, queen of the dead. You swallow hard, thinking, one family reunion you don't want to attend. The hall buzzes, half fearful, half amused. How could a party trickster sire such horrors? Someone quips, Loki is like mead. A little brings joy, too much brings ruin. Horns clash, laughter echoes, all in agreement. You nod. The image fits. Loki as a drunken knight, sweet at first, then dizzy, then aching. The tale closes. Loki will help bring Ragnarok, the world's end. Yet without him, there would be no stories for these long nights. You drink, throat stinging. Loki unsettles you, but you cannot look away. In firelight, you picture him smirking in a corner, sly eyes ready to shift at any moment. And you see, not all gods exist for reverence. Some remind you that chaos is part of life, like spilled mead on the table, never fully cleaned. You sit in the hall, horn in hand, as the storyteller lowers his voice further. No more laughter like with Loki's tales. This time, silence weighs heavy. Only fire cracks. He begins with two words that chill all spines. Ragnarok. The end of the world will come, he says. Not today, not tomorrow, but it will come. Fenrir the wolf will roar and swallow the sun. The earth will quake. Mountains will fall. Seas will flood the land. Jormungandr, the world serpent, will rise from the ocean, spewing venom across the sky. And Hel, queen of the dead, will unleash her army of corpses onto the battlefield. You swallow hard, picturing the scene. But at once, a warrior beside you mutters, sounds just like the morning after too much mead. The group snickers, then quiets, as the story moves on. The voice grows harsh. On that day, Thor will face Jormungandr. He will slay the serpent, but fall to its poison. Odin will fight Fenrir, but be swallowed whole. The sky will turn red. The world will burn. Outside, the wind howls, as if nature itself joins the tale. You shiver, yet sense something. Viking in this vision. Even in the end, they do not speak of fleeing, but of fighting to the last. None run, none hide. They stride into battle, clash weapons, as you clash horns with your companions. Someone blurts, half drunk. If Ragnarok comes, I hope I've got at least one horn of mead in hand. Another roars. One horn? I need a whole barrel. Laughter breaks the gloom, easing the dread. The storyteller continues. After Ragnarok, the world will not be gone forever. The earth will rise from the sea, green once more. Some gods will survive. A few humans will be spared, and the cycle begins again. You lean back, exhale. Even their apocalypse sounds like a feast, fierce, loud, but always leaving hope for the next round. You drink deep, letting the bitterness spread. You understand. To Vikings, Ragnarok is not only an end, but a way of seeing life. Everything will fall apart, but before that, they will laugh, sing, drink, and fight. And if the world is reborn, surely mead will be poured again. You sit, eyes blurring with drink and firelight. A Viking truth echoes in your mind. Even if the world ends, end it like a feast. In the hall, the mead still burns in your belly as the old man shifts his tale to something that silences the crowd further. Valhalla, the hall where warriors fallen in glory go. The Vikings believe that when you die in battle, the Valkyries, shining warrior maidens on horseback, descend, lift you from the blood and mud, and carry you to Odin's great hall. There, vast doors open, fire blazes, a table stretches without end, mead flows like rivers, and laughter booms like thunder. Just hearing it, you feel its sounds. Exactly like tonight's feast, only no one has to wake up hungover. The voice deepens. In Valhalla, each day is battle, each night a feast. By day, warriors fight, slay, and fall. By night, they rise again, wounds gone, horns full, laughter endless. You bite your lip, thinking, sounds like an eternal village festival, only the food never runs out and the mead never empties. A voice calls out, half joking, what about those who slip in the bath and die? Do Valkyries fetch them too? The hall erupts in laughter. An old woman replies, no, they go to hell, not Valhalla, and there's no mead there. A groan echoes, heads nodding as if it were warning enough. Die with honor, not by accident. You close your eyes, imagining the journey. The beat of Valkyrie hooves on clouds, the flash of light, the firm grip pulling you upward. The cold fades, replaced by fire's warmth and the sweet scent of honey mead. Before you lies Valhalla, where death is not an end, but a ticket to the endless feast. You drink again, throat burning, and smile. To Vikings, death is not the fear. The true terror is being denied Odin's hall, denied mead, denied laughter. In the fire's glow you understand. The final path of a Viking is not lonely darkness, but laughter drowning out death. And you wonder, when the Valkyrie calls, will you be drunk enough to walk into Valhalla smiling? You sit in the cold night, listening as the elder speaks of how Vikings send off the dead, not with silence or weeping, but with fire, ships, and a feast. When a warrior falls, if he is worthy, the village prepares a grand rite. They lay his body in a ship, surrounded by weapons, shields, armor, even animals. Sometimes, a horn of honey mead is placed in his hand, a message, drink on your way to Valhalla. You think, without mead, surely the spirit would return to complain. The ship is dragged to shore, piled with wood, hay, and pitch. Relatives add treasures, furs, sometimes slaves or captives, to follow their master into the next life. A chill runs down your spine. Yet to Vikings, this is honor, to go together, to live, to die, to drink in Odin's hall. At sunset, the ship is pushed to water. A warrior draws his bow, arrow wrapped in pitch, set aflame. The crowd holds its breath. The arrow flies, strikes. In moments, the ship erupts in fire, swallowing body and vessel alike. Flames reflect in the villagers' eyes, solemn but not mourning. A child whispers, "What if the arrow misses?" The elder nods, then shoot again until it hits. The hall bursts in laughter, breaking the tension. The blaze soars, smoke rising like a ladder for the soul to climb to Valhalla. People stand by the shore, horns raised, drinking deep, not to drown sorrow, but to share the last journey. For Vikings, funerals are not cries, but laughter mingled with fire and smoke, because they believe the dead have only begun their eternal feast. You sip mead, the bitterness sliding down your throat, eyes following the imagined fire ship drifting away. You realize, for Vikings, death was never hidden, never whispered. It was brought into the open, wrapped in flame, witnessed by the whole village, with drink, with laughter, with pride. Fear melted, leaving only honor. You lean against a wooden pillar, listening to the crackle of fire, almost seeing a burning ship sailing slowly toward the red horizon. And you understand. A Viking funeral is not an ending, but a promise of reunion in Valhalla. You once thought death was a period, the end of the story. But to the Vikings, death is only a comma, a pause before the next chapter. The elders say, "Those who fall in battle go to Valhalla, drinking with Odin. Those who die as common folk may go to hell, dwelling in the shadow of the death goddess. But wherever they go, none vanish. They only step into another room in the great house of the universe." You ponder, strangely comforted, as if death were only changing seats at a crowded feast. Children believe ancestors still watch them. Each time the fire crackles, they whisper, "Grandfather is laughing with me." Adults believe too, but lift horns high, drink deep, and say, "This is for my father, for my fallen brothers." Mead flowing down their throats is like a thread binding two worlds. You think, in Viking life, mead is a letter to the dead. Death never silences saga. On the contrary, saga keeps the fallen alive. When a warrior falls, someone tells of his mighty strike, even if, in truth, it was just a clumsy stumble. But what does it matter? For Vikings, truth was less important than a tale worth retelling on winter nights. You notice something. The Vikings feared being forgotten more than dying. Better to fall with a roar than live long and vanish from stories. You smile, seeing why they cherished mead, saga, and laughter. Three threads tying the living to the dead. In the fire's glow, you close your eyes, picturing the other world. Maybe Valhalla's clamor, maybe hell's quiet. But somewhere, laughter still rings, mead still flows. You feel at peace, because for Vikings, death was not an end, but a road paved with fire, drink, and memory. You take the last sip, the sweet bitter melting on your tongue. Outside the wind howls, but your heart is warm, for you know, even when bodies fade, laughter lingers, drowning every shadow. You lean against a wooden shield by the hearth. Outside, the northern wind moans, but the hall has fallen silent. Only embers glow, smoke clings to your hair, and the taste of mead lingers on your tongue. Or, in your mind, everything you lived with the Vikings remains. Odin's single eye, Thor with heavy Mjolnir, Loki's sly grin behind you, feasts roaring, battles blazing, sacrifices in smoke, and the fire ship carrying souls to sea. You smile. To live like a Viking was to live among extremes, fierce and funny, sacred and rowdy, violent and loving, battle and honeymead. They fought, they drank, they loved, they died. Then we're told again in saga. Life itself, like a Viking horn, held bitterness and sweetness, but always foamed, always overflowed. You feel the very noise lulls you. No Viking ever stayed silent. Even in death they laughed, sang, and raised cups with gods. In such a world, Fear dissolves. The clash of shields, the roar of voices, the chant of saga fade to a steady heartbeat, carrying you into rest. You drift, as if aboard a wooden boat rocking gently, fire warming instead of burning, carrying you across the silent night. And before dreams swallow you whole, you whisper, "To live like a Viking may be hard, but to dream like one, that is easy." You smile faintly and let yourself drift. And if you wish to wander further into dreams like this, stories at once magical, humorous, and soothing enough to lull you, remember to return to history for sleep. Leave a subscription, a like, or a comment, like a soft clink of horns with us. Tonight, you sleep with Vikings. Tomorrow, perhaps with the pharaohs of Egypt, or in the shadows of ancient Rome. Whatever dreams await, let history for sleep guide the way.